The classroom buzzed with laughter and chatter as Talent Day began, students eager to show off their skills, some rehearsing dance moves in the corner, others practicing songs and jokes. Marcus sat quietly at the back, his cane resting across his knees, fingers tracing the smooth wood. At 12 years old, he had learned how to make himself invisible to avoid the stares, the whispers, the pity. Born blind, he had perfected the art of listening, and now every sound in the room sharpened in his mind. Pencils tapping, sneakers squeaking, and most of all, the snickers from a group of boys in the middle row. "Hey, Marcus," one of them called out, his voice thick with mischief. "Why don't you sing for us? Show us what you got." The others burst into laughter, nudging each other as if they had delivered the perfect joke. Even the teacher, tired from wrangling restless kids, didn't intervene. Marcus knew they weren't asking because they wanted to hear him sing. They wanted him to be their entertainment, to stumble and give them more reasons to whisper. His stomach churned, and for a moment he thought about staying silent like always. But then he remembered his grandmother's words. "Your voice is a gift, Marcus. Never let anyone make you hide it." So he gripped his cane tighter and spoke up, his soft voice cutting through the laughter. "Okay, I'll sing." The room went quiet, the boys exchanging surprised glances. Marcus stood slowly, feeling his way to the front, every step measured. He didn't need eyes to know they were staring, waiting for him to fail. Taking a deep breath, he opened his mouth, and the first note slipped out, uncertain at first, but then steady, warm, and deep like a river. A gospel hymn his grandmother used to hum filled the air, and for the first time all day, no one laughed. The sound rolled over the room, rich and soulful, silencing the boys and pulling the teacher's gaze from her desk. Marcus sang on, unaware that the moment meant to humiliate him had already begun to transform the room. The first note trembled in the air like a fragile thread, soft and unsure, but within seconds it bloomed into something stronger, richer, something that made the entire room still. Marcus's voice, deep and velvety for his age, wrapped around every corner of the classroom like warm sunlight breaking through clouds after a storm. He sang the old hymn his grandmother used to hum while cooking in their tiny kitchen, her hands kneading dough as she told him, "Boy, your voice is a prayer. When you sing, you're speaking to the soul." At first, no one moved. The boys who had mocked him moments earlier froze mid-snicker, their grins fading as the sound washed over them. Even the teacher's pen dropped from her hand, clattering softly to her desk. Marcus stood there, his eyes blank, but his face alive with feeling, one hand gripping his cane as if it were an anchor to this world while his voice carried him to another. The room seemed smaller now, the walls vibrating gently with every note. As he reached the chorus, the strength in his voice deepened, filled with raw emotion and a power none of them had expected from the quiet boy in the back. Sarah, the shy girl in the second row, felt a lump in her throat and brushed away a tear before it fell. The boys glanced nervously at each other, their earlier bravado crumbling in the face of something they couldn't laugh at. Marcus wasn't just singing, he was commanding the room. The hymn's words spoke of hope, of holding on in the darkest moments, and somehow, each person listening felt as though it was meant for them. By the time Marcus let the final note linger, trailing off like a prayer whispered to the heavens, the silence that followed was deafening. No laughter, no whispers, just awe. Marcus stood still for a moment, breathing softly, unaware that he had just shifted the room's entire energy. He had walked into their joke, but walked out their equal, if not their better. For a long, breathless moment after the last note faded, the classroom was completely still. Marcus stood at the front, his cane in one hand, his small chest rising and falling as he tried to steady his breath. He couldn't see their faces, but he felt the weight of their silence pressing down on him. His fingers tightened around the cane, bracing for the laughter he expected to come crashing down like it always did, but it didn't. Instead, there was a sound, a soft clap. Just one. Marcus turned his head slightly toward it, his brows furrowing in confusion. It was Sarah, the quiet girl who rarely spoke in class, standing at her desk with tears streaming down her cheeks. "That was beautiful," she whispered, her voice breaking. Her hands clapped again, louder this time. Slowly, hesitantly, others joined in. A few students rose to their feet, clapping harder and harder until the room erupted in thunderous applause. Even the boys who had mocked him earlier were standing now, their smirks replaced with wide-eyed awe. "Marcus! Marcus!" someone shouted, and soon the whole room was chanting his name, stomping their feet like an audience at a concert. Marcus felt heat rising to his cheeks, his hands shaking, not from fear, but from something he hadn't felt in so long. Pride. The teacher, still rooted to her desk, wiped her eyes with the corner of her sleeve before stepping forward. "Marcus, that was extraordinary," she said softly, her voice thick with emotion. "You have a gift." For the first time all year, Marcus allowed himself a small smile. It wasn't because he wanted their applause or their approval. It was because he had finally shown everyone that his blindness didn't define him. His voice did, and though he couldn't see the stunned faces around him, he could feel the shift in the air. The boy they had invited to sing as a joke had just left the entire room speechless. Later that afternoon, Marcus sat alone on a bench near the school's entrance, his fingers tracing the grooves of his cane. The noise of students heading home swirled around him, but he felt detached, as if he were floating in another world. He didn't know that, as he sang earlier, one of the students had pulled out a phone and recorded the entire performance. By the time Marcus's mother arrived to walk him home, that video had already been uploaded to social media, gathering likes and shares faster than wildfire. Within hours, it spread across platforms: Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, capturing hearts worldwide. Comments flooded in. "This boy's voice gave me chills. How could they laugh at him? He's incredible. And somebody get this kid a record deal now." That night, Marcus's mother received an unexpected call. A producer from a local radio station had seen the video and wanted Marcus to perform live on air. "You're famous, baby," she said gently, brushing his hair back as they sat together on the couch. But Marcus tilted his head, his face calm. "I don't care about being famous," he murmured. "I just wanted them to hear me." Meanwhile, at school the next morning, everything had changed. The same boys who had mocked him now hovered nervously, trying to sit with him at lunch. Teachers treated him with newfound respect. But Marcus remained quiet, smiling softly as he tapped out a rhythm on his tray. His grandmother's words echoed in his mind. "Your voice is a gift. It will open doors you can't even imagine." 2 weeks later, Marcus stood center stage in the town's packed theater, gripping the microphone instead of his cane. A single spotlight bathed him in warm light as his mother and classmates sat in the front row, faces glowing with pride and awe. He couldn't see them, but he felt their energy humming like electricity in the air. The audience fell silent as he took a deep breath and began to sing. The same hymn that silenced his classmates now rolled across the room like a wave, rich and soulful, bringing grown adults to tears. Parents squeezed their children's hands. Teachers who once overlooked him sat misty-eyed in the back row, and the boys who once laughed the loudest stood now, clapping and cheering his name louder than anyone else. "Marcus! Marcus!" As he finished the final note, the theater exploded in applause, the sound vibrating through the floor into his feet. For the first time, Marcus felt the world not as darkness, but as music, a symphony of love and acceptance. Backstage, a producer approached with an offer. But Marcus only smiled. "I don't sing to be famous," he said softly. "I sing so people can feel." That night, as he left the stage, the boy who was once a joke had become a voice the world would never forget.